Pink Diamond emerged with a childish personality because she was actually an undercooked gem herself. Hey guys, I'm Crow, and today we're talking Pink Diamond was originally supposed to be Red Diamond. So in case you didn't know, an undercooked gem is a gem that emerges from the ground a little bit too early while being made, which results in a bunch of undesirable side effects. Same thing happens when a gem is overcooked, which is when a gem spends a little bit too much time underground while being made, which is what happened to our girl Amethyst. Now personally, I'd say that an overcooked gem is placed in a way better position than an undercooked gem. For starters, Amethyst basically still has the exact same powers and skill of a regular Amethyst, but she's just small. Now, while we've been introduced to a ton of overcooked gems and off colors, we've never technically been introduced to an undercooked gem, but what if we have? There's a very real argument that we know fairly most of the secrets of the gems, but the creation of the Great Diamond Authority themselves has always been shrouded in mystery. Pretty much the only thing we know about the diamonds for sure are the fact that they seem to follow the same rules as regular gems, except they're just far more powerful beings, and we know that the other diamonds were alone before we had Pink Diamond. We also know that the other diamonds are far more emotionally and physically mature than Pink Diamond. Fanart told us that Homeworld was running low on resources, which caused a ton of their gems during Era 2 to come out weaker than the gems created during Era 1. I'm thinking that Pink Diamond was a diamond created with minimal resources, which caused her to come out early and a few color shades off. That's right, I'm thinking that Pink Diamond was always planned to emerge as Red Diamond. If she emerged as Red Diamond, then she would have theoretically been about the same height as Blue, Yellow, and White Diamond. This would explain why she was the first one to sympathize with organic life. It's a well-known fact that children are generally easier to learn and adapt to new foreign concepts. Just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that Pink Diamond literally has the mind of a child. That in itself would have a bunch of uncomfortable implications for our boy Greg.
Why don't you take a seat right over there?
Let's flirt with the idea that because she emerged earlier than expected, in addition to being smaller than average size, she also processes situations differently than the other diamonds. I've always felt that Pink Diamond, and by extension Rose Quartz, was just an irredeemable character across the board, when you take into account everything that she did, but this theory actually low-key made me see Pink Diamond in a new light. Rose Quartz wasn't playing around when it came to experimenting with all kinds of terrible yet effective war tactics. I mean seriously, she was completely fine with harnessing hypersensitive gem shards for her own personal gain. She was a big fan of gem harvesting, and she also kept humans at a zoo in space, so I suspect were once used to fight in a war as well. At least the ancestors were, of course.
Didn't you hear what I said about the living armor and infantries and many deaths?
Besides the crystal gems themselves, we learned from Pearl that Rose Quartz used a special type of gem shard to possess suits of armor that once helped them fight during the Gem War. The Armor of the Fallen story doesn't end there, however, because we also have to take into account a ceremony called the Choosing that Rose Quartz herself created for the humans that she captured and kept at her mysterious zoo. I'm going to be brief here because what I'm about to say isn't confirmed, but we do have a ton of evidence supporting it. Rose Quartz was most likely keeping humans in the zoo to fight for her during the war, before she began using gem shards. She would force them to breed with each other during a ceremony called the Choosing, and once they reproduced, she'd use their parents as soldiers.
But things were getting really fun.
You are sick!
The most compelling evidence supporting this is the general arrangement of the Choosing ceremony. Without counting Greg and Steven, the zoo seems to be keeping 16 humans alive at the time, and as we've gone over earlier, there are 16 sets of armor in the Armor of the Fallen. She probably realized that humans wouldn't make the most durable soldiers before attempting to use gem shards. She then realized that gem shards wouldn't be too reliable either, and then stopped the Armor of the Fallen experiments altogether. All of this is nothing compared to Rose Quartz's disgusting use of gem harvesting, a practice that the crystal gems themselves gladly take part in.
Oh my stars. You're going to harvest me?
You're so smart.
Once Peridot is finally captured by the crystal gems during season 2, she name drops an incredibly important term when she gets released by Steven. Gem harvesting seems to be the practice of using gems as a power source against their will. If this all sounds familiar, it's because this is what happened to our good friend Lapis Lazuli. When Steven sets Lapis free from the mirror, she seemed convinced that the crystal gems understood what they were doing. something that is confirmed in her following episode when Pearl says something insane.
How could I have known the gem contained in that mirror would be so powerful?
You're all sick. Sick in the head.
The crystal gems captured and bubbled corrupted gems to protect them, sure, but they also gladly used gem-powered objects like the mirror. And rose quartz weaponized gem-powered objects like the desert glass. We know this because the only reason that the crystal gems even retrieve the thing is because of its lack of purpose without its master.
The power in the structure has turned aimless.
A few moments later.
Stairs that go nowhere! This is out of control!
This is further supported by the fact that it was found in the desert and protected by Lion, Rose Quartz's undead companion.
You didn't come here to steal the pillow! You came here to protect us from it!
You absolute buffoon!
This somehow gets even worse when we take into account Rose Quartz's laser light cannons and other gem-powered objects. No wonder Jasper was impressed by her war tactics. It's more inhumane and disturbing than anything that Homeworld ever came up with.
I fought against your armies. I respected your tactics.
She was going to scare every gem off the planet.
That's the evilest thing I can imagine.
Rose Quartz ran all kinds of disturbing experiments hoping to gain an advantage during the Gem War. She placed the shards of her own fallen soldiers into suits of armor, forcing them to continue fighting for her cause even after their shattering. I've also speculated at the possibility of Rose Quartz harnessing humans from the zoo built for her by the other diamonds in even more disturbing experiments. But I think I've finally uncovered the worst of the worst. 3 hidden atrocities done by Rose Quartz, hidden in plain sight, and all tied together by Rose Quartz's treasure chest hidden away inside of Lion's mane. Today we're going to start by discussing Rose Quartz's use of nuclear bombs during the Gem War. But first, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to subscribe. It would help me out a lot. Thank you. I've always been intrigued by all of the other corrupted crystal gems on Steven Universe. Where the crystal gems initially encountered each of them tell a story. Little Larimar, for example, was taken down and bubbled within the mysterious Ice Cavern, a location that I strongly believe was another one of Rose Quartz's secret bases, where she was running experiments hoping to gain an advantage on the Homeworld invasion. The ice monster in Monster Buddies was confirmed to be Little Larimar, and she was confirmed to be an original crystal gem, which is huge. I mean, we see doors inside of the ice cavern, structures meaning that this place was definitely important to the crystal gems. And to top it all off, the crystal gems returned here to retrieve a powerful artifact called the Shooting Star. In hindsight, we probably should have known that this episode contains secrets, because it's one of the few episodes where Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl actively go out hunting for gem weapons. The corrupted gem was always the main objective up until this point. I believe that the ice cavern was built to contain powerful gem-based explosives. Explosives that were designed using gem shards. There's plenty of evidence to support this theory, many of which was placed within the Shooting Star's introductory episode. For starters, Pearl was the one leading the mission into the ice cavern, someone who we would later learn knew all of Rose Quartz's secrets. At first, I was thinking that Pearl wouldn't bring the crystal gems to one of Rose Quartz's secret bases, or give up any of her secrets, but we have proof that Pearl brought Garnet and Amethyst to at least one of Rose Quartz's other bases. During the penultimate episode of Season 1, the crystal gems are seen harnessing 3 laser light cannons called the Courtesan Trio. Alright, so we know for a fact that while Pearl kept Rose Quartz's darkest secrets, she wasn't above giving some of her minor secrets away if it meant giving her friends a fighting chance against the Homeworld invasion. That brings us to our most important piece of evidence, being the Shooting Star itself. The crystal gems were desperate to retrieve a Shooting Star, an artifact so powerful that not even Garnet could hold it with her bare hands. Remember that Garnet is apparently a gem who's resilient enough to straight up swim in lava. This instantly explains why Rose Quartz chose to place Little Larimar in charge of handling the Shooting Star. Something that I always found odd about Little Larimar's corrupted form was the fact that her gemstone wasn't really her gemstone. Her real gemstone was encased within a crystallized body. It's reasonable to assume that Little Larimar was working on the Shooting Star project when she was initially corrupted. Here's the thing, even though we know the Shooting Star was guarded by Little Larimar, we don't really have proof that it was created here on Earth, right? Except we do have definitive proof of that too. In the Season 1 episode titled Winter Forecast, it's revealed that the Shooting Star self-detonates when it even comes in contact with the slightest hint of pressure. This proves that it didn't crash from space or something, because it would have exploded on impact. Alright, so we've established that Rose Quartz created the Shooting Star and gave Little Larimar, who was a trusted crystal gem, the task of guarding and containing all of its secrets. Where does that really leave us? How does the Shooting Star work exactly? And was it really created to nuke Homeworld? The crystal gems retrieve the Shooting Star star, hoping to use its power to completely destroy the galaxy warp, which gives us a lot of valuable information. This means that the shooting star's explosion was powerful enough to take care of the entire galaxy warp. Again, Pearl was the one who gave Garnet and Amethyst the idea to retrieve the shooting star, and she was also the one who ultimately decided that the shooting star would have been too dangerous to go through with using. Similarly to how Homeworld created the cluster as a last resort to combat the crystal gems, I believe that the shooting star was Rose Quartz's last resort to combat Homeworld. In order for someone to use the shooting star, all they need is access to the warp system. This means that Rose Quartz could have easily warped the shooting star to Homeworld to deal some serious damage, and she would have gotten away with it too if Bismuth didn't give her the idea to shatter herself. Rose Quartz was a troubled individual who literally made the decision to end her own life in order for her to bring Steven into the world. It's no secret that I'm not the biggest fan of Rose Quartz, but how could you blame me? She ran all sorts of horrifying experiments on humans and the very soldiers who were probably forced to follow her to begin with. But what we're about to discuss today has to be the absolute worst thing that Rose Quartz has ever done. Even though I've been trying to piece together and explain everything that Rose Quartz did during a reign of terror, there have always been certain pieces of a puzzle that never seemed to quite fit. I'm talking about clues that kept me up at night, scenes in the show that never made sense, specific choices that Rose Quartz made that seemed to directly go against her established character. I've uncovered evidence that changes everything. This is definitely my craziest theory on Rose Quartz by far, but I believe that Rose Quartz wasn't planning on permanently going away. I believe that Rose Quartz was planning on being in control of Steven's human body, and had countless failsafes in place to ensure that she would regain control or restore her original form if anything went wrong. But before we go any further, if you enjoyed this video so far, be sure to subscribe. It would help me out a lot. Thank you. Lion Free straight to video is ground zero for the idea of Rose Quartz having darker plans for Steven's existence. Rose Quartz planning to take over our boy Steven's body after his birth in itself isn't a new theory. This idea has been floating around the fandom since season 1 of the show because of this episode, but no one really went beyond the general idea. As the story goes, Rose Quartz made a videotape for Steven, and in said videotape she says, "Steven, we can't both exist, I'm going to become half of you." Taking this literally, many fans began to believe that Rose Quartz could have intended for this to have a much more sinister interpretation, especially since she ends her video with, "You're going to become something extraordinary, you're going to become a human being." It's worth pointing out that she says, and I quote, "Take care of them, Steven," directly after this, implying that she never intended to be sticking around after Steven's birth. If that was the case, then why would she leave so many loose threads dangling? Spinel, the corrupted gems, Bismuth, and the diamonds were all threats that Rose Quartz left for Steven to handle. Threats that would definitely impact Steven's ability to take care of the crystal gems. Some of these threats seem to have been placed specifically for Steven to have to deal with one day. Spinel was literally designed to be Pink Diamond's best friend. The only reason that Pink Diamond abandoned Spinel was because she thought that Spinel didn't have a place in her life when she was given her first colony. The problem with this is that Pink Diamond knew about gem procedures. She could have had Spinel rejuvenated and given to someone else, or she could have taken Spinel along with her to Earth. Pink Diamond being a horrible person as it stands is the only explanation for this, but isn't that extremely weak? It's a non-motivation as it stands. What if Spinel, along with a couple of other threats, was left on purpose to be awakened one day to take down Steven? Bismuth and Spinel were threats who only Rose Quartz knew how to defeat. Threats who were literally out to shatter her. Threats who Pink Diamond intentionally created herself. Take a look at Spinel's backstory again. Pink Diamond specifically ordered Spinel to stand in place and wait for her in front of a diamond communicator. This couldn't have been done on accident, and paired with some of the other weird choices that Rose Quartz made, this paints the entire situation in an entirely new light. Remember the state that Rose Quartz's fountain was in. It was overrun by sentient plant life. Pearl says that these plants were a mess without Rose's guidance, but we would later learn for a fact that sentient plants created by Rose Quartz don't forget their initial orders just because their creator stops giving them new orders. The Watermelon Stevens created an entire civilization because of Steven's order for them to understand the sacrifice made by Steven Jr. Even Garnet seemed puzzled by the current behavior of Rose's fountain, and this is all made stranger by the fact that we only ever see Rose's plans targeting Steven. In the midst of Steven's drowning, Steven hallucinates Rose Quartz reaching out to him. In my mind now, I think that this was symbolism of Rose Quartz trying to gain control of her body again. In the episode 3 Gems and a Baby, we're shown how each crystal gem perceives Steven. Amethyst thought Steven was Rose Quartz in a shape-shifted form. Garnet thought that Steven was a fusion with Rose Quartz, and most importantly, Pearl thought that Rose Quartz was trapped within Steven. Amethyst and Garnet's reasonings make sense. Shapeshifting and fusion are hardwired into their characters, their personalities, but Pearl, I think I've finally figured out why Pearl thought that, and I believe it's tied to whatever is hidden inside of Rose Quartz's chest. The content of Rose Quartz's chest kept within Lion's mane is arguably the biggest unsolved mystery on Steven Universe, a mystery that was fascinatingly solved off-screen. Steven found a ton of mysterious old items that once belonged to Rose Quartz inside of Lion's mane, including the VHS tape that she made for Steven, one of the last remaining crystal gem flags kept from the Gem War, a photo of herself with Greg, a Mr. Universe t-shirt, Bismuth's gemstone, her sword, and most importantly, her locked treasure chest. This treasure chest was teased throughout the entirety of the show. During the episode titled Lion 4 Alternate Ending, Lion picks up a key, causing Steven to freak out. Steven first attempts to unlock the chest within Lion's mane, but with no such luck. The key ends up opening a door in the middle of the desert, uncovering Rose Quartz's name for Steven if he ended up being a girl. This was cool and all, but it didn't solve the mystery. At the time, the episode felt like it was only created to make fun of fans who were looking deeper into the show and theorizing. But I think that we were all looking at this episode the wrong way. I believe that I not only figured out what was hidden away inside of Rose Quartz's treasure chest, I also figured out why Rose Quartz was so desperate to keep its contents locked away. And I can't wait to reveal my findings with you guys. But first, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to subscribe. It would help me out a lot. Thank you. Alright, in order for us to decipher the contents of Rose Quartz's chest, we need to first seriously talk about what she was comfortable with keeping outside of said chest. Remember that Lion, and by extension his pocket dimension, was left specifically for Steven, because she placed the tape that she meant for Steven inside of Lion. Rose Quartz was completely fine with keeping her Mr. Universe t-shirt, her flag, and her sword out in the open, fine. Then there's Bismuth, a gem who had a serious altercation with Rose and definitely wanted to shatter her. I mean, Rose Quartz leaving Bismuth here specifically for Steven is even more proof that she planned to have her son get knocked off after his birth. Or she was hoping that Steven would somehow be able to know about their conflict and fix it, without her ever telling Steven about their conflict. Either way, she must have thought that Steven would have had a much easier time dealing with the revelation of Bismuth and facing the reality of the contents hidden away within her chest. At this point, we've been over a ton of evidence on this channel that Rose Quartz was comfortable with running all sorts of questionable experiments on her own fallen soldiers and organic life. It's definitely something that we have to consider when we think about the secrets contained within her chest as well.
No.
The crystal basilisk has always been mysterious. They are basically small reptiles resembling a sort of lizard. But here's the thing that never really made sense about these guys. While they definitely are organic creatures, they also seem to be related to gems in some way which didn't make sense. Steven was supposed to symbolize a milestone for the universe, the first organic gem hybrid, which was rightfully a very big deal, but then we're casually shown, many times mind you, Lion eating these organic creatures with very clear gemstone spikes on their backs. The crystal basilisks are also very heavily connected to Lion, who is very heavily connected to Steven, which got me thinking. I believe that what was hidden away in Rose Quartz's chest has to be big. It has to mean something. I have a couple of theories for what could have been hidden away within Rose Quartz's chest, but my number one theory has to be information on her secret experiments on organic life. During my previous two videos, I spent a lot of time revealing a ton of Rose Quartz's countless secrets. This was done on purpose. I wanted to prove that Rose Quartz wasn't above doing insane experiments before I discuss this theory, which I know sounds insane. The crystal gems were always confused about the nature of Steven, but Rose Quartz always seems somehow to have a pretty great idea of how Steven was going to turn out. What if that's not because she just guessed? What if she wanted to be sure? What if Rose Quartz ran experiments on these species of basilisks to ensure that Steven would have a chance of surviving? After Lion picks up the key, he then picks up another crystal basilisk. Considering how Steven attempts to open Rose Quartz's chest directly after this scene, Lion picking up the crystal basilisk could have been another hint that the creatures had something to do with the secrets held within Rose Quartz's chest. The only time that we've ever seen a crystal basilisk alive was in the desert next to Pink Diamond's ship. During the Season 1 penultimate episode titled The Return, we're introduced to the single biggest plot hole in Steven Universe's history, involving the Gem War through Greg of all characters. I'm talking about humanity's lack of involvement in gem affairs.
Like aliens, Steven! Aliens who invaded Earth!
Greg said it himself, the gems are aliens who invaded Earth, so why don't we see any human interactions with them? Fighting back if they're against them, or providing backup if they support them. Humanity is not exactly defenseless. Magic or not, I'm pretty sure the right bullet would take out any space rock. I have 3 theories as to what's going on here, but let's dial it back and lay out all of the evidence first.
It's joy! I'm reporting this!
Peridot, after learning that the crystal gems exist, makes her way to Earth and the crystal gems in an effort to keep Steven safe, sends him away with the other citizens of Bit City. Greg tries to comfort Steven on their way out of town, and everything he says during this scene is just wrong. But it does eventually lead us into something massive that I haven't heard too many people talking about, so let's go through it. Greg first makes the point that the Homo gems don't really care about the Earth like the crystal gems do, which is something that we could have concluded.
They're not like garnet, amethyst, or pearl.
It makes you wonder why Pearl acted so surprised at the fact that Peridot wanted to reactivate the kindergarten despite it being harmful to the Earth.
Doesn't she know it'll destroy all life on Earth?
Yes! They're not gonna start caring about people now.
As if they didn't just fight a war to keep the Earth safe from said Homo gems, but I digress. The next thing Greg says has the implication that Greg was somehow there during the Great Gem War.
It's not like I was there.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And I know it's just a case of bad wording most likely, so let's just move past it. The important thing is we learned from Greg that gems took out an undisclosed number of humans during the war.
Gems were destroyed. People too.
Which brings us to our first crossroads. What Greg says here has 2 possible meanings. Either Greg means that a group of humans took part in the war and fought alongside the gems, or gems went out there and hunted humans for fun. It doesn't matter which one is right though, because if humans were directly affected by the war, why didn't they continue to fight back against the gems? You could say that the Homo gems left Earth after the war and the crystal gems went into hiding, so what could they have done? But I'd say that humanity could have quarantined these endless amounts of gem structures all over the Earth. Why didn't humanity step in when Peridot sent the Red Eye to Earth, or came back to Earth in a giant handship? Why didn't the bus driver in Fusion Cuisine report a giant woman stopping the bus? And most importantly, why hasn't humanity seized the moon base? We don't see any humans taking part in the Gem War during any of the dozens of flashbacks that we've seen of the Gem War, so...
Where are they? I don't see them!
That means that civilian humans were knocked off by these Homo gems. And if that's the case, my next question would be, why did humanity respond by going silent and ignoring all of the chaos being spread globally by these aliens? That brings us to my 3 theories that could possibly explain what's going down with the government in Steven Universe, and we're going to go through them through Greg's perspective. The first possibility is that Greg is lying to Steven in the Return, and no humans were actually hurt by the gems during the war, or ever.
I need to find out if he's lying.
He's lying.
He could have been lying to add an extra level of seriousness to the situation, in order to keep Steven away from the gems. But when listening to his tone, I doubt that he's actually lying here. The second possibility is that Greg is telling the truth, and a bunch of humans really did get their skeletal system rearranged by a few Homo gems. And if that's the case, why didn't humanity retaliate against them? We've gone to war for much less. I don't buy it. The third possibility is that Rebecca Sugar and the Croniverse really did plan to explain the human gem dynamics at one point or the other, but they ran out of time, or it could have been a dropped idea, but we don't really have any evidence of this in either series or a movie, so it's unlikely. Did you guys notice how none of these 3 theories really help explain any of my other issues with a lack of human intervention on the show? If you guys have any theories of your own, I'd love to read it in the comment section. I just solved 2 of the biggest mysteries in Steven Universe, which we once thought were 2 of the show's biggest plot holes. Time traveling gems are a thing on Steven Universe, and for the longest while since I started making Steven Universe videos, I've been trying to stealthily ignore that fact. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of time travel being introduced into magical worlds unless it's fully explored, and time travel was only a 1-episode gimmick for Steven Universe, or so we thought. I've uncovered some pretty huge stuff here that I guarantee is going to blow your mind. In the Season 1 episode titled Serious Steven, we are introduced to one of the plot holes in question, that being this pyramid. That's because there are ancient drawings inside of its place, drawings that break the show in so many ways. Whoa! Fans for years have tried to place what it all means. If this pyramid is trying to portray events that happened already in the past, why was it built using the Era 3 Diamond Authority insignia? And if this place is trying to portray events that hasn't happened yet, which would explain this era 3 Diamond Authority insignia, who predicted all of these events with such accuracy? Sapphires can't predict the definite future, a topic we've gone over in my previous video, but if they didn't have anything to do with this place, who did? This becomes even more of a mystery when you factor in the Crystal Gems' reactions to this place. They didn't seem surprised seeing rose quartz plastered all over the wall here, and they weren't surprised by any of the crazily accurate events being showcased on the walls either, which confused the fandom for years on end. It would have been one thing if the Crewniverse never referenced this place or this episode ever again, but they did the exact opposite. We have endless amounts of Easter eggs and references to this one episode, which means that all of this is important and vital to the story of Steven Universe. What if I told you that this place was built for Steven by gems from the future, in order for him to get the confidence boost that he needed to start taking his journey seriously? Let me explain. Did you guys notice how the pyramid in Serious Steven works almost identically to the gems testing ground for him in the episode The Test? Even the episode itself uses a storytelling technique that the Crewniverse rarely used in the show overall, and I'm talking about jumping forward in time. The episode starts with Steven waking up at Funland, 2 weeks prior to the event that actually takes place in the pyramid. The gems also let Steven know just how important this mission is, almost like this mission was designed specifically for him. We also have to take into account the fact that Garnet had the key for his place to begin with, yet she seemingly didn't know anything about its existence. I think that all of the Crystal Gems in this moment knew exactly what they were doing, but just wanted to give Steven a chance. We learn in the episode Steven and the Stevens that Homeward was working on developing time-traveling equipment, and they succeeded. Steven utilizes one of their inventions called the Glass of Time and actually travels through time in the episode in order for him to get his way, before he abruptly dies near the end, which means that the Steven we follow post Steven and the Stevens isn't technically the original Steven. But that's a whole other kind of worms that isn't really relevant to this video, so we're just going to move past it for now. I've been jumping around during this video a lot, so let's recap everything and let me explain my time travel theory clearly. The pyramid in Serious Steven was built for Steven by Homo gems from the future in order for him to tackle what the Crystal Gems themselves described as being his first serious mission. That's why it's filled with Easter eggs from both Steven's past and his future, and that's why the Crystal Gems were comfortable with him tackling this dangerous mission despite his recent failures.
I wanted to tell you for so long.
Garnet was always a stoic and super chill character who always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. We would later learn that this was because Garnet possessed future vision, an ability that allowed her to glimpse into the most likely possibilities and outcomes of any given scenario. Time is like a river. Future vision works like an unreliable map that assists Garnet and guides her during her journey. This is the explanation of future vision that many of us in the Steven Universe fandom would have agreed to be the most accurate, but this explanation of how future vision works has always bothered me for multiple reasons. The truth is, time has always been linear on Steven Universe. It doesn't work at all using the river analogy that Garnet always seems to burst out whenever she needs to act surprised during an upcoming twist. I've always been intrigued by time, space, and decoding the secrets of our universe. But since I'm just a guy theorizing on YouTube, I'm going to be decoding the secrets of how time really works on one of the cartoons that defined my entire childhood instead. Sapphire, Pat Paracha Sapphire, and even Garnet herself heavily suggest that time in Steven Universe has always been set in stone, and I'm going to prove it. But first, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It would help me out a lot. Thank you. At the beginning of the season 1 episode titled Future Vision, Garnet saves Steven from falling down the stairs and then reveals to him that she had an ability called Future Vision. I mean, Future Vision didn't even make complete sense in the episode introducing the ability. Garnet explains that she's able to see possible outcomes to most scenarios and proves this by correctly predicting events throughout the episode and saving Steven again, but this time from getting 3rd-degree burns from Laz, surprisingly by accident. In the season 5 episode titled Pole Hopping, the writers made sure to let the audience know that Garnet's future vision was getting nerfed, as if it ever worked as advertised to begin with. But basically, Garnet explains to Steven that it's been getting really hard for her to exist and continue predicting events in their timeline. The episode is set after Steven surrenders himself to Homeward but before the big rose quartz reveal, and it plays out as you'd expect. An episode to make sure that nobody asks the most obvious question of why Garnet couldn't see this outcome coming. Garnet has literally been surprised by every single major event on the series. Some fans believe that Garnet needs to be actively focusing on future vision in order for it to work, But if that was the case, then why didn't she see Peridot coming? Steven was panicking out of his mind during the season 1 episode titled Warp Tour, insisting that he saw something outside of a warp stream, and Garnet never even attempted to look into the situation using her future vision. Garnet never learned her lesson after that debacle either. She still made the same mistakes over and over again, but maybe Sapphire's future vision simply isn't at its full power while being fused inside of Garnet. Sapphires were aristocratic gems in Homeworld society, meaning that they were incredibly rare gems who wielded incredibly valuable powers. Something weird right off the bat that you notice is that whenever Sapphire is separated from Garnet, Future Vision is basically her entire personality. During the season 2 episode titled The Answer, Garnet says that Blue Diamond was relieved after her meeting with Sapphire, which is hilarious considering what happened seconds later during that day, but I digress. This entire scene didn't help to clear up the confusion about the true nature of Future Vision, especially when you consider that Sapphire was confident that she knew everything that was going to happen during that day up until the moment she fused with Ruby. Basically, we were supposed to interpret this moment as being so unpredictable that not even Sapphire could have seen it coming. A moment that changed her life forever, and that's great. I love Ruby and Sapphire, but you know it doesn't look any better on Sapphire's long record of flat out wrong predictions. Interestingly enough, Sapphire does make a string of correct predictions when she splits up with Ruby during the season 2 episode titled Keystone Motel. In fact, basically all of Sapphire's predictions during this episode were basically right. Even the one that we played for laughs when she was angry in the motel. Sapphire does make one massive mistake in this episode though, and that's name dropping a word that she should not be trying to associate with her character, and that word is fate. Fate goes against everything that Future Vision claims to stand for, right? One of the off-color gems we were introduced to on Homeworld during Steven and Lazzie's big escape was an off-colored sapphire named Padparacha Sapphire. Padparacha Sapphire's future vision was technically more accurate than our Sapphire's future vision. She hasn't ever made a wrong prediction on the show, and once in a while her predictions actually come in handy. How does Padparacha's future vision work exactly? I mean, she seems physically unable to process current thoughts and memories, speaking strictly in the past, albeit a couple of seconds in the past. Padparacha Sapphire has a delayed future vision, but that doesn't explain why her predictions are correct 100% of the time. It's almost as if something more bizarre is going on here. It's almost as if Padparacha Sapphire is literally stuck in the past. I mean, it's about time that we tackle the hard question head on. How does time actually work on Steven Universe? In the season 1 episode titled Steven and the Stevens, our boy Steven stumbles upon the Hourglass, a Homeworld artifact with the ability to take the wielder anywhere across the past, present and future. Something that is confirmed by Padparacha Sapphire's delayed predictions being correct 100% of the time. Garnet and Sapphire's future vision seems to be the only thing that goes against this theory, and I think I have an answer for why that is as well, which we'll discuss in a moment. Steven uses the Hourglass to travel a couple of days into the future by accident. Remember when Steven freed Lapis from the mirror and she proceeded to steal Earth's entire ocean? Our boy Steven teleported himself into the middle of a completely drained ocean, which is an event that will happen days later, and that's insane when you really think about it. If time really worked like a river like Garnet explains, then this episode shouldn't have been possible along with Padparacha Sapphire's entire existence. That honestly doesn't leave us in a great place. Why does Garnet seem so sure that time works like a river instead of a clearly straight path that it appears to be? I'm definitely not implying that Garnet is lying or anything, so how does her mindset fit into the reality of her universe? Something big that we definitely have to take a closer look at before we can properly answer that question has to be the way that Garnet temporarily transfers her future vision onto other people like Steven. Garnet has transferred her future vision to Steven twice on the show, and both times support the theory that their world works on a linear timeline. When Garnet reforms during the season 1 finale, she kisses Steven's forehead, which temporarily gave him access to her future vision. The kiss lasted for less than 2 seconds, yet it accurately revealed the locations of both Amethyst and Pearl to Steven. The kiss didn't show Steven any weird scenarios where Pearl and Amethyst got ejected into space, it just revealed the future, straight up. The second time that Garnet transferred the power of future vision onto Steven occurred earlier during season 1, when Steven wanted Cornea to sleep over at his house in Beach City during a heavy snowstorm. Garnet of course sneakily passes her future vision onto Steven in order for him to experience firsthand what would happen if he didn't listen to her advice. Instead of showing Steven possible paths, the ability gave him the chance to live out different scenarios inside of his head in a split second, which worked great as an episode but brought up even more annoying questions about Garnet's future vision. Everything time-related on Steven Universe is screaming that destiny is real. It's screaming that the show follows one linear timeline, except for Garnet. Garnet has actually admitted to Steven plenty of times that she doesn't actually know how her own powers work. But what if that was more literal? During the season 5 episode titled Your Mother and Mine, Garnet spent an entire episode explaining how the gem war went down, but we'd later learn of course that everything Garnet said during this episode was wrong. What if Garnet literally doesn't understand how future vision works as well? Similarly to how Homo tricked Era 2 Paradox into believing that they were made without any powers, what if they also filled the heads of their own sapphires with lies, telling them and insisting that they could only see possibilities and not the definite future, and they just believed it? Homo has always had a reputation of doing whatever it took to keep their gems in line. They wouldn't want rogue sapphires to know about their full potential if they ever rebelled. We learn from Pearl in the season 2 episode titled Keeping It Together that gems are grown by the diamonds on planets that have organic life. That's because the machines that Homo uses to make gems need various types of materials in order for them to make different types of gems. For example, we learn from Peridot that in order for Homo to grow other Peridots, they need to venture deeper inside of a planet to get the materials needed to do so.
Lava is what comes out of volcanoes. That's superheated peridotite.
We actually got the chance to see what would have happened to the Earth if Homo completed their plans. It makes sense that gem soldiers are usually made first on a planet because they only require harnessing the energy from that planet's surface, and rarer gems get their status because they require energy that can only be found much deeper inside of a planet. While rarer gems seem to have additional unique abilities, there are certain abilities that are consistent across all gems, like the flashlight function, item storage, item summoning, weapon summoning, and fusion. Amethyst explains in the short titled How Are Gems Made that what we know as a gemstone has the same properties of a rock, which makes sense because all gems can also be cracked and shattered. Two of the biggest pieces of evidence that leans us in the direction of gems being advanced technology instead of magical beings are the concepts of gem rejuvenation and poofing. Gem rejuvenation resets a gem into their primary form, wiping out all memories or data. Secondly, when a gem is poofed, they cycle through all of their previous forms before deciding on their updated form. Both of these features make the argument of gems being advanced technology designed by a higher power very convincing. But there is also one piece of evidence that leans us in the completely opposite direction of gems being unexplainable magical beings, and that's the concept of gem harvesting. That's because gem harvesting is the practice of using a gemstone as a power source against their will, which means that gems can produce unlimited amounts of energy without needing to recharge themselves. In order for us to get a concrete answer of whether gems are more artificial intelligence or magical beings, we'll need to look into the secret origins of the Diamond Authority themselves. We get a lot of clues and hints to the true origins of the gems in the season 5 episode titled Familiar, when Steven cycles through a number of pictures on Pink Diamond's personal communications device. In the beginning, there was only White Diamond, Yellow Diamond, and Blue Diamond. Based on everything that we've been shown, it seems like Pink Diamond was literally the newest diamond. White Diamond was at the head of Homeworld and decided on the rules of the society. Yellow Diamond was in charge of the armies of Homeworld along with all of their tactical weaponry. Blue Diamond was entrusted with the task of designing and maintaining Homeworld structures. And last but certainly not least, I believe that Pink Diamond was in charge of gem production on Homeworld. We've been told by White Diamond that Yellow, Blue, and herself were alone before they had Pink Diamond, and I don't think that she meant this metaphorically. As we've gone over before, some gems have certain abilities that are only unique to them, even the diamonds, and Pink Diamond had the ability to create life. We know that she created the pebbles on Homeworld a long time ago before Steven also created one of his own by accident. What if the gem injectors on Earth weren't simply color-coded pink to symbolize the planet being owned by Pink Diamond? What if it was color-coded pink because Pink Diamond was the one responsible for creating gems on all planets? The other gem buildings on Earth are color-coded correctly for the specific diamond who would have been in charge of getting the structures up and running. The Lunar Sea Spire and Galaxy Warp are color-coded correctly for Blue Diamond, for example. This is unfortunately as deep as the series gets as far as the lore explaining the origin of gems. And considering this, I'm definitely thinking that gems are more magical beings than they are artificial intelligence. While most aspects of a gem's existence can be explained away using the AI theory, some of it just can't, like the fact that a gem has unlimited energy no matter where they are in the universe. We followed Steven throughout his journey and I've seen him mastering all of Pink Diamond's unique powers and abilities. From defensive abilities like floating, healing tears, and shield summoning, to offensive abilities like plant manipulation, super speed, and a terrifying sonic scream. Pink Diamond may have also had the disturbing ability to force other gems into obeying her every command. Today, I want to explore the true nature of this ability and the possibility of Steven utilizing it for himself by accident and on purpose. But first, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to subscribe, it would help me out a lot, thank you. There are countless scenes in the original series where Pearl covers her mouth, unable to speak her mind during crucial moments in the show. In the season 1 episode Mirror Gem, when Steven revealed to the crystal gems that the mirror was talking to him. In another important season 1 episode titled Rose's Cupboard, when Pearl felt threatened at the possibility of Rose keeping secrets from her. In the season 2 episode It Could Have Been Great, when Peridot reveals the completed plans that Homer had for the Earth. In the season 3 episode Back to the Moon, when Eyeball was accusing Rose Quartz of shattering Pink Diamond in front of Pearl. In the season 4 episode Steven's Dream, when Steven realized that the crystal gems were still keeping secrets from him and decided to pressure Pearl for answers. In the season 5 episode Gemcation, where Steven continued his desperate search for the truth. And finally, in another season 5 episode A Single Pale Rose, which was definitely one of the most important episodes in the series. The episode where we learned that Pink Diamond was directly responsible for Pearl silencing herself.
No one can ever find out we did this.
A few moments later.
Let's never speak of this again.
We have to consider every possible angle when we look at the Pink Diamond and Pearl scene in A Single Pale Rose. On one hand, Pearl could have been forced into not speaking about Pink Diamond because of a secret ability that we were never explicitly shown, but on the other hand, Pearls in general could be programmed into listening to their owner's command without the possibility of defiance. If we're going with a second headcanon, then that would recontextualize this scene in Now We're Only Falling Apart as the exact moment where Rose Quartz forced Pearl into staying infatuated with her, without the possibility of her ever moving on.
I imagined that I ran away and met you here on Earth.
A few moments later.
Tell me to stop.
Please don't ever stop.
Disgusting!
We know for a fact that Pearl does eventually end up moving on from Rose Quartz, so that proves that she wasn't just following her Diamond's orders because of some kind of programming, because programming wouldn't wear off. The big question is, did Steven ever unlock Pink Diamond's ability to mind control gems, and if so, did he ever use this insanely overpowered ability on the show? To determine this, let's take a look at a couple of instances of Steven talking people down into listening to him, with the idea of Steven already having his mother's mind controlling ability fully unlocked. Thankfully, as I'm sure you all could have guessed, there are no shortage of scenes that fit this mode, since literally 95% of antagonists on the show had their minds changed by Steven. But I'm only interested in analyzing two of the most compelling scenes. I'm going to be working this theory in reverse in order for us to see it in practice. Basically, we're going to be taking a look at two scenes that heavily go against the possibility of Steven having mind controlling abilities. Let's first take a look at Bluebird Azurite, the fusion between Aquamarine and Eyeball. Bluebird Azurite is the only on-screen antagonist on the show that never forgives Steven and change their ways. This also goes down after Steven and the crystal gems make peace with the diamonds. Bluebird Azurite exists to prove to the audience that while everyone is capable of positive change, they don't always choose to. Steven tries his best to talk Bluebird into changing their ways at multiple points throughout their debut, but of course they choose not to and retreat into space, promising to always be against Steven and his cause. We also have to take a look at Jasper, a gem who Steven repeatedly tried to convince to that he wasn't Rose Quartz, but she held onto that belief up until the final episode of the series, where she finally saw Steven for who he truly was. Jasper and Bluebird Azurite prove that Steven definitely did not have mind-controlling abilities. Every other moment in the series that supports this theory seemed purely coincidental to me. I wish I could have gone along with the narrative of Steven having those kind of abilities for this video, but I can't because of these two glaring pieces of evidence that go against it. Do you guys ever get that creepy feeling like you're being watched, like something isn't quite right?
We just want to talk. Blue Diamond.
One of the many reasons why I fell in love with Steven Universe was because of the sheer amount of attention to detail and care that the Crewniverse poured into the show. There's a ton of interesting details and Easter eggs hidden away within every nook and cranny if you look deep enough. But every once in a while, you stumble upon a bizarre string of Easter eggs and gags that all seem to connect seamlessly, sending you down the dark path of conjuring up conspiracy theories. Now, to be fully transparent, I've already made my fair share of conspiracy theory videos focused on Steven Universe, but believe me when I tell you that this one is different. This theory is something that I've always had brewing in the back of my mind since season 1. the kind of theory that genuinely kept me up at night back when I was a kid. But there's so much compelling evidence supporting it that I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't accidentally convert some of you into closeted conspiracy theorists like myself. Today, we're going to be uncovering the shocking identity behind the founder of Cookie Cat, along with revealing their motives behind creating the product in the first place. Cookie Cat, being Steven's favorite ice cream sandwich brand, was introduced since episode 1 of the original series, and became the underappreciated catalyst behind Steven's abilities. Outside of a genuinely wholesome introduction of Cookie Cat, the product itself has always had a weirdly mysterious vibe around it. For starters, it's already been well documented that the lyrics of the song itself was basically a simplified version of Pink Diamond's backstory. The song directly references an interstellar war as being the cause for Cookie Cat leaving his family behind. Yeah.
It's a little obvious.
When we take a look at the design of the Cookie Cat character himself, the connection becomes even more clear. Half of Cookie Cat is color-coded pink for its strawberry flavor, while the other half is color-coded white for its vanilla flavor. The Diamond Authority insignia for Era 1 showcases White Diamond as being the direct opposite to Pink Diamond. Everything about Cookie Cat just screams a greater cosmic significance, but before we can even attempt to identify its creator and their mysterious motives, we need to talk about the Cookie Cat franchise's other food items and products. In addition to selling ice cream sandwiches, the Cookie Cat franchise has also produced tubs of ice cream, alarm clocks, birthday cakes, and toy walkie-talkies. Based on these limited items, we can safely conclude that Cookie Cat was a brand that was marketed towards children. A once popular and thriving brand that was forced to shut down production on their signature product. That doesn't just happen. We'll return to these important pieces of evidence later. Right now, it's about time that we discuss the bizarre trail of unresolved Cat plot points. Cat Steven was introduced during the final season of Steven Universe, and she basically drove every Steven Universe series at the time crazy with a single episode. And in order for us to move forward with our Cookie Cat investigation, it's crucial that we break down how she was able to pull it off. Pool Hopping being the episode in question focused around Garnet desperately trying to distract herself from a feeling of powerlessness. Around this time, Garnet was dealing with the reality of her situation and the fact that her future vision predictions were getting less and less accurate. In an effort to take back some control over her life, Garnet decided to be random for a day and go with the flow, which led her to following a cute kitten through the woods with Steven. This trail eventually led Garnet and Steven to her home and her family of other cute kittens. Of course, Steven and Garnet would adopt a kitten after Garnet explicitly mentions that there was something different about one of them, which definitely stood out, but then it got even weirder. Garnet decided to name the kitten, who she just called out as being significant, Cat Steven. The Croniverse really decided to have Garnet name the kitten with a lost eye Cat Steven. Naturally, Steven Universe theories started to theorize about the possibility of our boy Steven losing an eye. But as far as we know, it never happened. Alright, so if Cat Steven wasn't introduced to hint at Steven losing an eye, why was she really introduced? And what did Garnet see in Cat Steven's future that piqued her interest? Don't worry, I'm not hinting at Cat Steven being the founder of Cookie Cat. Honestly, that would be more tame compared to where this theory is actually going. Cat Steven's greater significance in this theory can be traced back to Steven's parents, Greg Universe and Rose Quartz.
But you're supposed to change.
Greg and Rose fell in love with each other and after living together for a few years decided to have a baby. Once Steven was born, however, Greg fell into a state of depression. He was so depressed that he stopped cleaning himself, his van and his garage. Greg's garage is unironically one of the most intriguing locations in Steven Universe. The sheer amount of Easter eggs that the Croniverse and Rebecca Sugar chose to sneakily cram inside of Greg's garage makes going through some of those scenes specifically feel like you're treasure hunting. This poster titled Invasion Mutant hints at the true origin of the gems. These three heads hint at the arrival and eventual redemption arcs of Lapis Lazuli, Peridot and Jasper. Benson. Here's the thing though, even though this is definitely Greg's garage, Greg himself has admitted plenty of times that he isn't completely sure what Rose Quartz chose to place inside of his garage. Rose Quartz chose to store some of her personal items inside of Greg's garage. Among those items were one of her dangerous laser light cannons. This is particularly interesting because Greg has confirmed in the past that Rose Quartz and the Crystal Gems did everything in their power to ensure that Greg wouldn't come in contact with any dangerous gem-related activity. But at the same time, Rose Quartz is casually storing one of her dangerous gem-related weapons inside of Greg's personal garage of all places. We can't even argue that she left this here for Greg, because he not only had no idea what a laser light cannon looked like, He also had no idea that Rose Quartz decided to keep one inside of his garage in the first place. We also can't argue that Rose Quartz kept this laser-light cannon here as a last resort for the crystal gems, because none of the crystal gems knew that Greg had access to one of them. Rose Quartz already knew that Pearl had access to 3 other laser-light cannons as well, because Pearl knew about Rose Quartz's secret armory.
A pack of laser light cannons!
The core design trio!
Speaking about Rose Quartz's secret armory, because of locations like the expansive dimension held within Lion's Mane, the temple, her crashed spaceship, and her secret armory itself, we know for a fact that Rose Quartz wasn't forced to stop his laser light cannon here because she was running out of storage space or something. Because of all of these various factors, we have to zero in on the reality that Rose Quartz chose to keep this laser light cannon inside of Greg's garage, in hopes that Steven would eventually find it one day without her ever telling him about it. Or Rose Quartz wasn't the one who decided to store this laser light cannon inside of Greg's garage to begin with, which unfortunately makes the most sense.
Rose's secret armory.
The gems told me not to get involved with magic stuff.
The light cannon!
You wanna know some other unexplained items that was revealed to have been stored inside of Greg's garage? A portable cat cage and a few of his humanoid cat paintings.
Whoa! Seriously, when did you even have a cat?
During the season 1 episode titled Maximum Capacity, Greg and Amethyst started hanging out. Pearl would soon explain that Greg and Amethyst would spend a ton of time together in the past, watching a show called Little Butler, before Rose Quartz came between them. During the episode, Steven would bring attention to Greg's portable cat cage, something that is really random, isn't it? I mean, it could have been included in as a joke, but at the same time, that doesn't change the fact that Steven was right in this scene. He confronts Greg and rhetorically asks him the question, when did you even have a cat? It's still a valid question. At this point, we've definitely seen Greg during all of the most important stages of his life in Beat City. Cats typically have a lifespan of 12 to 18 years, so either Greg bought a portable cat cage with the plans of eventually getting a cat but never did, or he had a cat after deciding to settle down in Beat City and morbidly forgot to feed it.
Star Child!
Who's there?
Seriously, when did you even have a cat?
We've been over every piece of evidence in detail. Now it's finally time for us to bring the Cookie Cat conspiracy together. There's only one person who could have done it all, besides Rose Quartz, who we've effectively cleared of most suspicion. There's only one other suspect who would have had both a motive to plant a laser light cannon inside of Greg's garage and the access to get it inside of his garage to begin with. Coincidentally, there's also only one suspect who could have been portrayed within Greg's cat photos, considering the paintings are literally direct portrayals of a human-sized cat. We know for a fact that Steven developed his own cookie cat recipe by the end of the series. Of course, his cookie cats were imperfect, but that was only because this batch was homemade. We also know that Steven is passionate about making cookie cats. It's one of a few other things that Steven actually loves doing besides helping people. By the end of Steven Universe Future, Steven was ready to go out and explore the world just like his father. What if Steven found a way to go back in time again in order for him to explore the same world that his father got the chance to? We've known for a long time that time travel canonically exists on Steven Universe. The inverted pyramid in Strawberry Battlefield also canonically has Easter eggs and references from both Steven's past and his future. In addition to Pink Diamond, the Cookie Cat theme song also technically tells the story of Steven's life, something that the writers cleverly used to kick off an emotional moment during the finale of the series. In a scenario where Steven travels back in time to live out the rest of his days in peace and becomes the founder of Cookie Cat, how does any of those cat pictures and Cat Steven's foreshadowing fit into this conspiracy theory? Well, what if Steven also took the form of a cat during this time period? Not only would this have heavy narrative significance, but this would also guarantee that nobody would recognize him and give a deeper meaning to the name Cat Steven. If a pink diamond and a pearl equates to a rainbow quartz, then what does an actual rose quartz and a pearl create? It's an extremely interesting question that when solved reveals the answer to another question. A question that every Steven Universe fan who has ever finished the show has deeply pondered about. I've already given my thoughts and theories on what I believed was locked away within Rose Quartz's chest, the true nature of future vision, and a ton of other fascinating unsolved mysteries focused around the show. I'm ready to move forward with this discussion on the true nature of the spacefaring race known as gems, as well as reveal how I believe they originally came to be in the expansive universe. universe. Alright, let's do this one last time. If I were to ask you right now, what are gems? The answer that you'd give by the end of season 1 versus the end of the series would most likely be very different. Here's the shocking truth though, even though the definition of gems as an extraterrestrial species has fundamentally changed over the course of a series, the gems themselves have all remained consistent. Let me explain. During early Steven universe, gems could have been best described as a mix between technological and magical beings who were each created for one purpose. Common gems like amethysts were made using surface level nutrients from a planet, while rarer gems like sapphires and peridots were made using nutrients found much deeper inside of a planet. Speaking about amethysts, they were huge gems created to be obedient soldiers, except our amethyst being overcooked came out, for lack of a better word, wrong. Basically, our girl amethyst spent a little bit too much time underground being formed, and as a result of this, her base form is smaller than the other amethysts. Here's where things get really interesting. Peridot tells Amethyst that the only reason that she wasn't the size that she was meant to be was because of the fact that she didn't get the chance to meet the other Amethysts in the kindergarten and use them as a reference. This idea that Amethyst could literally just choose to reform as her intended size at any moment is further supported by her rapid form changes during the season 2 episode titled Reformed. The truth is that Amethyst is simply comfortable with her size. She's comfortable with the person that she became over the course of a series, and it would be extremely out of character for her to choose to reform as a typical Amethyst. I hope you guys realize that this opens up cans of worms that you really want to keep sealed for a show like this. The idea that gems could adopt the form of any other gem during reforming at will. We've seen Yellow Diamond use her new abilities to scale Garnet up into the power and size of a diamond. We've also seen Garnet shapeshift her hands with ease into a powerful elongated monster. Look, gems being able to permanently change their own size and shape is one thing, but what if I showed you evidence that all gems also possess the ability to choose their own powers as well? We've seen multiple cases of gems losing their powers during moments of stress and self-doubt. Steven loses the ability to heal people and objects using his saliva after Greg tricks him into believing that his powers were gone. Steven has only been able to summon his shield during moments of high pressure until he mastered the ability. Garnet frequently loses the ability to accurately predict the future whenever her abilities are put into question by the other crystal gems. During the Steven Universe movie, Spinel teases Steven about the possibility of losing his powers after hitting him with a rejuvenator. Spinel would have no reason to assume that Steven wasn't already born with mastery over all of his powers. She would have no reference to assume something like that, assuming that Steven was the first gem hybrid that she met, of course, unless all gems only develop more advanced abilities after training. Peridot's development of her ferrokinesis heavily supports this idea. She didn't have any powers because Homeworld simply told her that she didn't have any powers. We've seen the diamonds themselves train and unlock brand new abilities out of thin air, and all they had to do was change their mindset. Pink Diamond shapeshifted into a rose quartz, and she believed that she was a rose quartz, which allowed her to maintain her form indefinitely. Steven wanted to grow up alongside Connie, and this goal allowed his body to change. Pearl has very suspiciously admitted that she saw Pink Diamond as an authentic rose quartz herself. Because of this, I can almost guarantee that if Pearl fused with another rose quartz, they'd still make a similar size and powered rainbow quartz. This goes for rose quartz's other fusions as well. Garnet and Amethyst also believed that they were fusing with an authentic rose quartz, and so they actually did. If all of this evidence seems overwhelming to you, don't worry. It's about time that we finally uncovered the truth. It's about time that we reveal how gems were really made. Gems appear to be nothing more than magical rocks in the most literal sense, no technological parts included. We've seen the shards of fallen gems plenty of times. We know for a fact that gems don't have any advanced components inside of them. We've also never seen a gem run out of power. In fact, gems in general appear to possess unlimited power. The only real difference that we've ever seen alternate between gems is the power output. The only reason that the diamonds are the strongest gems on Homeworld are because they literally have the biggest gemstones. The only reason that gems pop out of the ground already knowing what they were meant to look like was because they typically emerged in the presence of other like-minded gems. This idea of gems all having the potential to manifest and lose powers based only on their feelings would explain why Pink Pearl faced a Pink Diamond plagued with anger issues and harmful powers, and our Pearl faced a hopeful Pink Diamond with the abilities to heal other life forms and grow organic life. Weirdly enough, this also explains why all gems besides Steven are female. The first known gem was female, and as a result, every other gem that followed in their footsteps adopted the same sex. We can call gems holograms all day, but that doesn't change the fact that their bodies are 100% real. Rose Quartz successfully conceived a son. Amethyst has confirmed that she's able to fully digest food, and gems are able to produce bodily fluids. Because of all of this evidence, I believe that gems are strictly magical creatures who came to exist out of the universe itself. We've actually already been subtly shown the origin of Pink Diamond. She was mined from a magical meteorite without any technological programming. Lars and Sadie didn't deserve the redemption arcs. Don't get me wrong, I loved watching both of them grow and develop. Rebecca Sugar also confirmed on her podcast that Lassie's resurrection was something that was planned from the start, and that's great, but I can't appreciate Lassie's future when he never attempts to repair the long-lasting damage that he caused to Ronaldo in the past.
Ugh, that's social napalm?
Lars was Ronaldo's best friend while growing up. He was more specifically hinted at being Ronaldo's only friend back during season 1. Lars of course betrayed Ronaldo and sided with his bullies, forcing Ronaldo to grow up alone while contributing to making his life a living hell.
You wouldn't say that if you knew what other people say about you!
None of this ever gets resolved as you'd expect. Lars never apologizes to Ronaldo, and to make matters worse, he basically gets rewarded for all of this. It's definitely a very unique situation. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Ronaldo myself. If I had to choose to watch an episode featuring a Beat City resident, he would not be at the top of my list. And I bet most of you would agree with me on that. But here's the thing though, that isn't Ronaldo's fault. We've gotten plenty of proof that Ronaldo had the potential to be a really compelling and layered character, but only when the writers wanted him to be.
Take it down a notch.
By the end of Steven Universe, Ronaldo truly became one of the most hated cartoon characters of all time, and by the end of Steven Universe Future, everyone practically forgot that the guy existed. The writers dropped the ball so hard on Ronaldo's character that Cartoon Network had to straight up lie in order for them to secure a higher viewership on one of their Ronaldo-centric episodes. During its peak, the Steven Universe fandom became one of the strongest communities on the internet, and nothing grabbed our attention more than new upcoming gems and fusions. Cartoon Network tried to weaponize that fact by releasing this cryptic image of a gemstone on their official Twitter account page while teasing fans with a caption, "If you can guess the gem, you can guess who you're going to meet tomorrow night on a brand new Steven Universe." Cartoon Network was trying to promote the season 4 episode Ronaldo, an episode in which Ronaldo temporarily becomes a crystal gem. This was without a doubt one of Steven Universe's most pointless episodes. I mean, none of the characters learn anything, and there wasn't really a lesson for the audience other than don't be offensive.
They hate men?
Once Ronaldo becomes a crystal gem during the episode, Steven asks him to come up with a gemstone name that would best describe his personality, and Ronaldo of course comes up with the name Bloodstone. While I still very much consider Ronaldo to be one of the show's most pointless episodes, it does have a couple of genuinely really funny jokes.
Is that love? Is that acceptance?
The truth is that the way that Ronaldo is written during this episode proves just how little the writers cared about keeping him consistent. In Ronaldo's mind, the Rock People and the Crystal Gems were two separate factions, except it would be impossible for him to come to this conclusion, because he never met Peridot, Lapis Lazuli or Jasper up until this point in the show. Jasper should be the only gem really being considered here too, since Peridot hasn't ever summoned a gem weapon and Lapis Lazuli's water wings aren't exactly weapons.
They can summon weapons from the mud dimension!
Either way, he never met any of them, and even more confusingly, he's seen the Crystal Gem summoning weapons firsthand plenty of times. Here's the thing, Ronaldo slowly fading into being a comedic relief background character would have been fine if his tragic backstory intertwining his destiny with Lars and Sadie didn't exist, but it does. The episode also featured one of the strongest corrupted crystal gems that we've ever seen on the show, a gem that the fandom refers to as White Topaz. We know that White Topaz was a crystal gem because she was stuck within the very walls of Beat City's lighthouse, and Homo didn't know the location of the crystal gem's main base, until they forced Lapis to show them the way in the season 1 penultimate episode. Anyway, the episode in question that did all of this damage to Ronaldo's character while also being his best episode was the show's Halloween special titled Horror Club. I mean, the episode was released in the middle of February, but it had to have been made as a Halloween special. It's literally the only season 1 episode with jump scares. Horror Club opens with Steven going to the Big Donut to pick up Sadie in order for them to travel to Ronaldo's party at the lighthouse. Lars tags along with them after he finds out that Sadie was serious about going to Ronaldo's party. Ronaldo simply wanted to have a relaxing night hanging out with his friends, but Lars being Lars, bullies and undermines Ronaldo at every possible turn. The only reason that Lars even came in the first place was to keep tabs on Sadie and make sure that she didn't get any closer with Ronaldo. And when Sadie did finally start to flirt with Ronaldo, Lars bullied and undermined him harder.
If you wanted to help,
Lars goes so far, but Steven himself calls him out on his behavior and insults him.
You can stop being such a dink to Ronaldo.
Lars then desperately tries to manipulate Sadie into leaving the lighthouse with him, and even she turns against him. Eventually, with the help of our girl White Topaz, we're shown exactly what happened between Lars and Ronaldo that made them grow apart. Basically, Lars ripped apart one of Ronaldo's pictures because he didn't want anyone to see him getting decked by White Topaz's gem-powered hijinks, which is understandable. Except that Lars proceeded to destroy what little confidence that Ronaldo had left before deciding to run away. At the end of the episode, Ronaldo apologizes to Lars, and this doesn't surprise me in the slightest because while I love Steven Universe, the show has always had a habit of getting the victim to apologize to the abuser. Kevin was such a creep. The guy continued to hit on Stefani even though he knew they were basically what equates to 2 kids in a trench coat.
Your whole 2 kids in a beautiful trench coat routine won't fool me this time.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I mean, the Creaniverse tried to negate some of Kevin's creepiness by letting the fandom know that Stefani was canonically a 28-year-old, but Kevin didn't know that. This information isn't ever given to us on the show, and even if it was, it still doesn't make Kevin's actions feel any less out of place. This situation gets even stranger when you realize that Kevin only appears during 3 episodes in the show, yet he gets a low-key pretty decent arc. Kevin is a surprisingly complicated character, and I can't wait to dissect him down to the bone with you guys, but first, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Help your boy move out of this box. Thank you.
This is where the traffic is. This is also where the traffic is. There's traffic here too.
Kevin was introduced in the season 1 episode Alone Together. He was originally a pseudo-antagonist for Stefani, the breaking point and nail in the coffin that would ultimately lead to their unraveling. At the beginning of the episode, Steven and Connie were hanging out with each other on the beach. The crystal gems were teaching Steven how to fuse earlier that day but took a break, coming to the conclusion that there would be a chance that Steven wouldn't be able to fuse at all, considering the fact that he's a half-human hybrid. These revelations stuck with Steven throughout the rest of the day, and he pours his heart out to Connie about the situation. Connie, seeing an opportunity to relate to and comfort Steven, lets him know that he's lucky to even have a chance to openly dance with his family, because she herself never had the chance to dance in front of anyone. Steven, like the little gentleman that he is, takes the lead and asks Connie to dance with him, and she accepts. Steven and Connie dance with each other for a little bit until they gracefully fuse, forming Stefani for the first time. Stefani, of course, starts geeking out at the very existence and rushes to the crystal gem so that Garnet could join in with them. Side note, Amethyst was the one who came up with Stefani's name.
Steven? Connie? Stefani?
I just wanted to give you guys more proof as to why she's the best crystal gem. Garnet lets Stefani know that they should celebrate themselves and explore Beach City as a fusion. Stefani decides to take Garnet's advice and they get into all kinds of hijinks, but Steven and Connie eventually starts breaking down within Stefani outside of a big donut. They keep it together long enough to get invited to a rave later that night. Stefani excitedly goes, but it doesn't go according to plan. Steven and Connie start feeling deeply alone, even though they were together the entire time inside of Stefani's mind. In the midst of Stefani's second breakdown, a mysterious figure emerges, metaphorically invading Stefani's mind. We would later learn that this mysterious figure had a name, Kevin. Kevin at this point in the episode, without knowing the important context behind Stefani, starts flirting with them. Kevin was always meant to be the yin to Stefani's yang. It's apparent in his identical skin tone and clothing colors. He was introduced to be that creepy guy at parties that marks on all of the ladies. Kevin was introduced to make Stefani and by extension us the audience feel uncomfortable, and he was effective at it. Stefani unravels, but Steven and Connie, being physically reunited, joyfully dance with each other in front of everybody, enjoying every single second of it. Kevin instinctively backs down, proving himself to be a stand-up guy who wouldn't say anything inappropriate to a bunch of 7th graders. Kevin would later return in the episode Beach City Drift, seemingly with his memory wiped because he goes right back to raising up Stefani. Steven and Connie decide to go out and raise Kevin in an effort to prove to him that he didn't affect their relationship. And Kevin just gets worse and worse as the episode went on.
I know you want to be close, but this is a little clingy.
Amethyst, I blame you for this.
Stefani would of course lose the race because this was their first time driving a car. Kevin would later invite Steven and Connie separately to his party in the episode fittingly titled Kevin Party, where he reveals one of his most private secrets. Kevin used to be in love with a girl named Sabina, a girl who the fandom soon figured out was none other than Mystery Girl. The question is, does this reveal make Kevin's behavior with Stefani feel any less creepy? And the answer for me at least is a resounding no. Most people are indifferent on this topic though.
Man, I don't even have an opinion.
Well, you gotta have an opinion.
Then, to add insult to injury, Connie hops on Steven's lion and keeps him for the remainder of this colossally pointless arc.
Who's responsible for this unwarranted attack on my person?
Connie Maheshwaran tore the Steven Universe fandom apart during the original series' final season, and to this day, I'm still within the group of fans that strongly believe that Steven shouldn't have been the one to apologize to her. Connie's introduction into Steven Universe was amazing. Before she actually made her debut, the Croniverse left this really well-placed Easter egg hinting at her in the first episode of the show. We got to see Connie grow and develop as a person alongside Steven as they became best friends with each other.
In water, chimps will drown.
Steven and Connie's dynamic before season 2 is actually a lot deeper than you'd initially think. During the season 1 penultimate episode, as Steven rushes back to Beat City after convincing Greg to let him help the Crystal Gems face off against the incoming threat, he desperately tries reaching Connie.
Come on, pick up.
You've reached the Maheshwarans.
Faced with no other options, Steven records a message for Connie, a decision that he would soon regret. After facing his deadliest mission yet, Steven lets Greg know all of the details of the attack, and of course this freaks him out.
Where's my relaxing music CD?
A few moments later.
Wrong one! Stop!
This causes Steven himself to overreact and push Connie away, which only makes her worry about him even more. So much so that she rushes down to Beat City to attempt to talk to him in person. Connie eventually convinces Steven to open up to her and they cry in each other's arms. During this moment, Connie sympathizes with Steven and does an unbelievably great job making him feel heard after nearly losing everything.
Are you okay?
Are you okay?
A few moments later.
You're the one that's been through everything. The least I could do is just listen.
You're the one that's been through everything, the least I could do is just listen. This line encompasses everything that was great about Connie during the earlier seasons. I wonder if she's going to abandon this way of thinking completely later on. Connie would later grow even closer to the Crystal Gems by becoming an accomplished sword fighter while undergoing training with Steven and Pearl. Connie and Steven go through so much character development and growth together after this that is genuinely nothing but a treat to watch unfold on screen. They go from learning that there is a correct situation to fuse in episodes like Beat City Drift.
I hate Kevin!
Is that love? Is that acceptance?
To having their first real couple of battles together, which ultimately leads them to defeating Jasper in a 2-on-1 fight. Well, 1-on-1 because fusion. This leads us to the phenomenal episode titled Mindful Education, an episode where Steven proves that he cares about Connie just as much as she's always cared about him.
It's okay!
No, it's not!
Steven would soon after have to go into space on an important mission to rescue Greg from the human zoo, entrusting Connie with the task of keeping Beat City safe while he would be away. When Steven returns to Earth in the episode titled The New Crystal Gems, Connie excitedly greets him and stays true to her established values, maintaining her place as one of the most understanding characters on the entire show. She doesn't blame Steven for letting Greg get captured, and she definitely isn't mad at Steven for making the hasty decision to leave Earth as soon as possible without her. It's all understandable for Connie. In fact, she lets Steven know just how much she missed him and confirms that she protected Beat City with Lapis and Peridot.
Sorry we left you behind.
A few moments later.
It's okay. You were really worried about your dad.
Clever girl.
The Jambirds operated as a team even though they were worlds apart from each other, and it seemed like nothing could ever break them apart. That is until season 5 rolled around and decided to demolish years of writing and character development for the most infuriating arc in the entire show.
Which season?
5? I'm angry.
Trash.
I know. Ugh.
This assassination of Connie's character starts at the finale of season 4, in the episode titled I Am My Mom. Aquamarine and Topaz ruthlessly invade Beat City in search of a couple of humans requested by Blue Diamond and Yellow Diamond. The battle against these homo gems eventually leads Steven and Connie onto Aquamarine's spaceship. Connie asks Steven to fuse with her, but in the heat of a moment, Steven misses out on the chance to form Stevoni.
Steven! Let's fuse!
We don't do that here.
Steven breaks down in the middle of a fight, begging Connie to forgive him while blaming himself for the current invasion.
I'm Rose Quartz!
Honestly guys, right now I wanna smash everything in my room. I wanna smash absolutely everything in my room.
Steven, in a desperate attempt to keep everyone else safe, gives himself up to Aquamarine and Topaz, revealing himself to be none other than Rose Quartz, leaving everyone else in shock. Steven goes through hell on Homeworld, but through a stroke of luck finds his way back to Earth through Lassie's head. When he gets back to Earth, he tries his best to explain himself to Connie, except this time, she tries her best to make Steven feel bad for giving himself up to Homeworld.
Are you happy to see me too?
A few moments later.
Of course I'm happy to see you, Steven.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
But how could you just give yourself up like that?
Man, I'm gonna break my monitor, I swear!
You're the one that's been through everything. The least I could do is just listen.
Several months later.
You just gave up.
What are you doing right now, bro?
Then, to add insult to injury, Connie hops on Steven's lion and keeps him for the remainder of this colossally pointless arc. Why is Lion just going along with Connie here? What happened to the moment that Lion and Steven shared in the previous episode when Steven found out the truth about Lion?
Oh, Lion.
A few moments later.
Strange how it just comes and goes.
After Connie rides off into the moonlight with Steven's lion, she proceeds to ghost him for the next 5 episodes, causing Steven even more unnecessary trauma after having to revive Lass on Homeworld and being put on trial. It gets even worse, because the next time that Steven finally gets the chance to talk to Connie at Kevin's party, she explodes on him and lets him know just how much he let her down again.
I'm angry.
A few moments later.
I miss you.
A few.
I feel like I'm out of my mind.
Yes! No, you're not.
Hey, who's responsible for this unwarranted attack on my person?
It gets so bad that Steven felt that he had no other choice but to apologize to Connie. It's important to remember that the only reason that Connie was so angry in the first place, the reason that she felt so betrayed, was because she thought Stevoni could have defeated Aquamarine and Topaz.
Steven! Let's fuse!
A few moments later.
It's okay. I'm not mad.
Really?
I'm serious!
Connie was completely in the wrong here, and because of her newly developed ego, she lost sight of a simple fact that fusion doesn't solve everything, a lesson that she already learned, by the way. And sometimes all you can do is just listen to your friend and be there for them when they need you the most.
I can't ask you to do that.
A few moments later.
I want to be a part of your universe.
It's just the way it is. I'm just a messenger.
Steven Universe had an oddly satisfying ending. I find myself loving it more and more every time I rewatch it. I even think that Steven Universe Future's entire arc, which was basically addressing the very real trauma that Steven had to go through as a kid, was handled decently well. My biggest problem with Steven Universe Future and the original show is the undeniable wasted potential during some of the series' biggest arcs. The beginnings and endings of both series are perfectly fine in concept, but the main reason why so many people like myself felt disappointed with them at the time is because the path that the writers chose to take us there wasn't great, and I want to break down where they went wrong. But first, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to subscribe, it would help me out a lot. Thank you. Bluebird Azurite. I was talking about Bluebird Azurite in my previous Steven Universe video for being the only on-screen villain that didn't forgive Steven and change their ways, but that was in context to me trying to disprove the possibility of Steven having mind-controlling abilities. Bluebird was introduced to brilliantly teach the audience that there are some people out there that can't be changed no matter how hard you try to help them. Unfortunately, besides that, Bluebird Azurite was a disappointing mess for several reasons. For starters, the only reason that Bluebird didn't forgive Steven was because Eyeball and Aquamarine felt hurt when he stole their glory away. They were convinced that Steven somehow tricked Homeworld into liking him, and this doesn't work because Aquamarine wasn't portrayed as being this dumb in the original show. Aquamarine was a calculated badass, the kind of antagonist who would threaten to crush skulls if she didn't get what she wanted. Even with Steven's new powers, Aquamarine could have easily beaten Steven and the Crystal Gems without even breaking a sweat if they didn't nerf her by taking away her wand. In doing research for this video, I found an explanation for the clear lack of wand action that went on in Steven Universe Future. The Steven Universe wiki says that non-summon gem weapons were outlawed during Era 3, and because of this, Homeworld personally took Aquamarine's wand away from her. I'm going to pretend like this is canon for the sake of this video, even though I couldn't find the source of this claim on the show, in any interviews, or in the release books, but it most likely is official information. You're telling me that Homo just took away her wand. I just don't understand why they would do that. The whole point of Aquamarine's wand was to act like an extension of herself. She kept it perfectly camouflaged in her hair. Why didn't Aquamarine just hide her wand inside of a gemstone and make her escape away from Homeworld if she was going to rebel against them anyway and go after Steven? The wand is basically just a pocket version of Homeworld's limb enhancers, so I guess we have no choice but to assume that Homeworld took those away from underdeveloped gems too. Let's be real, the idea of non-summon gem weapons being outlawed all of a sudden is just a dumb excuse to give the crystal gems a fighting chance against Aquamarine, so let's just move on. Bluebird Azurite also fails as a character because they only appeared once during Steven Universe Future, and they weren't even the highlight of their own episode, Steven and Greg's powerful dynamic war. Then there's the Cluster, a massive gem consisting of a large amount of gem shards harvested from various fallen gems that took part in the gem war. The Cluster was name dropped since Jailbreak during the season 1 finale, and we got a proper explanation of the Cluster during the season 2 episode Back to the Barn, when Peridot revealed that it was created to destroy the Earth. This was weirdly one of the series' slowest arcs, despite having some of the highest stakes.
Why are they just sitting there looking at nothing?
A few moments later.
We worked hard and we deserve to take it easy for a little bit.
I mean, Peridot and the Crystal Gems finished the drill and just danced around the barn for a couple of episodes doing nothing. Here's the thing, I fully understand why they did this. Season 2 was meant to be set up for the incredible amount of payoff that we'd later get during Season 3. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't jarring to see Peridot trying to convince the Crystal Gems that stopping the Cluster from blowing up the Earth should be the #1 priority.
Working hard is important, but feeling good is important too.
Get sketchy.
Peridot has to be the most interesting out of the 3 Homeworld gems, although I know that's very debatable. It's clear that the Chronicles chose to show her the most love though. Her redemption arc had a ton of care put into it. We got to see Peridot in an incredibly vulnerable state as she slowly had her entire outlook on life challenged and put into question by the Crystal Gems, and it was next level. But do you guys remember when Peridot was actually terrifying? I'm talking about a time before she was being used primarily as comedic relief.
You.
A time before she was getting emotionally abused on a regular basis by Lapis.
This is low even for you!
A time before she was being pulled out every time the show wanted to have a villain of the week episode.
Team Rocket's blasting off again!
We were first introduced to Peridot in the season 1 episode. The episode starts with Pearl and Amethyst flirting with each other on their way home after completing a mission.
And the way you were circling around it almost looked like strategy.
Ooh la la! Ooh la la!
Well, you know, I can do that stuff too.
Ooh la la!
On the warp ride home, Steven, because of an allergic reaction from the flowers, sneezes himself outside of a warp stream, and for a brief moment, he sees an unknown entity using the warp pad technology at the same time as them. Garnet gives us another moment that puts the usefulness of her future vision in question, when she completely denies the possibility of Steven actually seeing something outside of a warp stream.
I know there's something out there.
There's nothing out there, Steven.
But you're wrong.
You what?
Steven reasonably doesn't have any luck falling asleep that night because of what he saw earlier and becomes incredibly paranoid. Amethyst, seeing an opportunity to have some fun with Steven's declining mental health, decides to add fuel to the fire and secures her place as the best gem on the show.
Are you scared of that thing you saw warping right into the house and attacking you in your sleep?
The Crystal Gems finds Steven next to the door the next morning and decides to be supportive towards him, making the decision to use the warp pad to prove to Steven that he has nothing to worry about.
Listen, nothing on Earth can use the warps but us.
A few moments later.
Nod in agreement.
I'm confident Pearl is right.
But you're wrong.
After Steven has a ridiculously awesome argument with Pearl, the Crystal Gems cave and take him to the Galaxy Warp, which leads to another ridiculously awesome argument with Pearl.
This warp pad is broken!
Stop acting like you know the way ahead, like you know the rules. There are no rules, man. We're lost.
Eventually, Steven gives up on his obsession with what he saw earlier outside of a warp stream, and just when he admits defeat, he gets his confirmation. Steven follows the robot onto the warp pad, and he gets tossed outside of a warp stream when he gets ambushed by a large number of them.
And now, I'm gonna die.
When all hope seemed lost for Steven, Garnet's future vision finally kicks in and she warps into the exact location needed to rescue him. The crystal gems reach the location that all of the mysterious robots were heading to, just in time to see them successfully completing their mission and repairing the central homeward warp pad, leading us to Peridot's honestly menacing debut. One of the first things we see Peridot doing is crushing one of the weakened robots without remorse, shocking Steven. Peridot hurriedly leaves though when she finds a sticker placed on the warp pad by Steven, causing the rest of the gems to start panicking at the thought of another homeward invasion, and you can feel the raw fear coming from each of them.
Few moments later.
She's not coming back.
But you're wrong.
The next time we get a glimpse of Peridot is in the episode Marble Madness. In the episode, Peridot keeps sending more robots to Earth, except this time they're supersized. And the crystal gems for some reason kept describing them in the most uncomfortable way possible.
Stop coming here, you stupid balls! They just keep coming, and we don't even know what they are! We don't know anything!
The crystal gems, tired of destroying these robots, decide to listen to one of Steven's plans and follow them to its destination, leading them to the kindergarten. Peridot, following up on reactivating the kindergarten, shows up, this time on a big screen but just as intimidating.
Is she trying to reactivate the kindergarten? Doesn't she know it'll destroy all life on Earth?
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Steven straight up interrupts Peridot's workflow, and we finally get to see their first interaction together.
Hi, I'm Steven.
Peridot then drops one of the coldest lines on the show before attempting to mercilessly crush Steven.
Just picking up where we left off.
The crystal gems, left with no choice, step out of the shadows in order to save Steven's life and battle Peridot head on.
But yeah, this was a pretty bad idea.
The last time we see Peridot while she still has her dignity is in the season 1 penultimate episode titled The Return, when fittingly, she returns to Earth with backup. Jasper 100% steals the show during this episode, but it's undeniable that Peridot still kept up with her intensity just fine. Lapis Lazuli is a super interesting gem, but there are still so many aspects of her character and existence that leave me scratching my head, still to this day. We're first introduced to Lapis in the season 1 episode. Steven, after finding out that school is a thing, goes to Pearl in order for them to start a school of their own, but things don't go as planned.
Who will teach little Stevie now?
Pearl summons a mirror with her lapis lazuli chopped in the back of it that she found at the Galaxy Warp. She explains to Steven that it can capture and display any event that it has personally witnessed.
It can capture and display any event it's witnessed in all of gem history.
I have a ton of problems with this already. We know because of a season 3 episode titled Same Old World that Pearl's explanation of where she found Lapis makes sense. But let's take a look at something interesting that Lapis says in Same Old World.
I was only meant to visit for a short time, but I got caught in the middle of the war.
Lapis was supposed to be visiting Earth for a short time. Why exactly was she supposed to be visiting for a short time? Yellow Diamond would have you believe that Lapis Lazuli has an incredibly important role in the process of gem conquest.
A lapis terrafont.
I bring all of this up because how in the world did Pearl not know what a Lapis Lazuli's gemstone looks like? The thing isn't exactly hidden on the mirror. Alright, so Lapis says that she was accidentally taken down and confused for a crystal gem and then used as a tool for information in order for them to find the location of Rose Quartz. That makes sense, except for the fact that she wasn't wearing the Crystal Gem Rebellion star symbol at the time. But I can look past that, it was a war after all, things got crazy. Amethyst fine, but I can't grasp how it's possible for Pearl to know everything about how the mirror works, just like for Homo gems, except for the fact that a living gem was needed to power the thing.
You didn't tell me it's like a person.
Wait, what?
That's what the kids call epic fail.
Later on in the episode, listen to what Pearl is concerned about when she learns that the mirror is showing signs of having a personality.
It shouldn't be able to do that. It should only be following orders.
What kind of sick, twisted reaction is this? It should only be following orders? In context to everything that we learn later on, what are we supposed to think of the crystal gems after this scene?
Steven, it's just a mirror, a tool. It can't want anything.
This is coming from Ruby and Sapphire. We literally have confirmation that at least these two know what a lapis lazuli looks like. Sapphire was a higher up gem, and rubies were guards that were tasked with guarding various gems, including the higher ups. Gems that could have been terraformers perhaps. At the end of the episode, Lapis says this to Steven after she's freed.
You three knew I was in there.
This doesn't make any sense. There ain't no way the crystal gems knew that the gem was trapped in this mirror from the very beginning. According to everything I've already pointed out. But these are way they all acted, their reactions, and the fact that Pearl handed Steven the mirror in the first place with glee. But let's try to take all of this in at face value. Now we have no choice but to assume that the crystal gems from the very beginning figured out that a gem slave was trapped in the mirror, and for some reason, instead of bubbling it, which is the least cruel thing to do, chose to hand it over to Pearl in order for her to keep it as a tool of her own.
Yeah, let's bubble it!
You should have thought of that earlier.
Most likely they thought it was an enemy soldier homo gem from the war, but we've already gone over why that wouldn't make any sense or line up with everything we learn later on. But anyway, we have to assume further that Pearl also knew that a lapis lazuli in particular was trapped inside of a mirror. This mirror appears to be specifically made for lapis lazulis, which makes sense according to what we learn later on and background details.
Thank you.
It's like a mirror.
It was thousands of years ago.
Lapis lazuli seem to have some kind of unique connection to mirrors. When Lapis shows Steven her backstory, Steven brings up the detail that the surface that she was using resembled a mirror. Her cracked gem form also gave her reflective eyes, something we know is unique to only lapis lazulis while comparing it to Amethyst's cracked form.
Amethyst! I'm sorry!
Lapis was trapped on Earth inside of a mirror and used as a tool for at least 5,000 years, and that would have definitely impacted her mental state. When she was finally freed and made her escape off planet, she was brought right back to the same prison, the same planet that she was trapped on by Peridot and Jasper.
You disgusting, disgusting creature.
Because of this, Lapis grew an intense hatred for Peridot and Jasper, one that I hope we can all agree would have been justifiable up until this point in the show. Now let's get into everything that Lapis does afterwards. Jasper and Peridot were successful in capturing the crystal gems and took them on board the handship as prisoners, along with Lapis herself. Eventually, through Steven's persistence, the gems end up all escaping and crashing the handship on the beach. Jasper emerges from the wreckage, catching the gems off guard, but one thing that is important to note is that Garnet just finished dealing this kid the beating of her life. She doesn't have a gem destabilizer, and to top it all off, Pearl, Amethyst and Lion are here for backup just in case she somehow outmatches Garnet.
I'm in danger!
Lapis emerges from the wreckage as well, however, and Jasper takes the opportunity to manipulate Lapis into fusing with her, or so we thought.
Just say yes.
A few moments later.
Are you stupid or something?
Lapis was apparently in control of the situation the entire time. She fused with Jasper in order to trap her on Earth and help Steven like he once helped her. Looking back at this as a fan, it's awesome. It works so well as the season 1 finale, and Malachite's design is really cool. But looking back at this from a character perspective, if any of you can look at me with a straight face and see that fusing with Jasper was the only way to stop her in this moment, after everything that I've just pointed out, then I don't think anything would convince you otherwise.
There was no other way.
But you're wrong.
This is the gem that stole the entire ocean and fended off the crystal gems at the exact same time, all while having a little chat with Steven, and she showcased all of that raw power with a cracked gemstone. The ocean is right there, and the crystal gems are right there. We have to conclude that Lapis chose to fuse with Jasper. But why would she purposely trap herself on Earth for a second time?
Kids these days, I'll tell you what.
After Malachite is defeated and Lapis is freed, she drops a bombshell on Steven in the episode Alone at Sea, where she admits to missing Jasper and enjoying all of their time together.
You don't have to be with Jasper.
A few moments later.
I miss her.
This is an incredibly serious topic. Steven Universe is clearly trying to make a link between Lapis and Jasper's dynamic to a harmful and toxic relationship.
You're pushing your luck, Scoop!
The show completely drops the ball though, because it polarized the entire fandom in a situation that just shouldn't do that. Obviously, we all know that harmful relationships are bad. We also know that abusers are bad. The big and honestly uncomfortable question is, who is the abuser in this situation, Lapis Lazuli or Jasper? Actually think it over for a second, because it's not as simple as it might sound, and I promise this video isn't going where you think it's going. The show wants us to view Jasper as the abuser. Lapis confiding in Steven that she misses Jasper in this moment is a common sign of a victim missing the abusive relationship after it's ended.
You only beat me because you're a fusion.
Look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power.
When Jasper returns during the episode, it's also clear that the show has a gaslighting Lapis, another common sign of abusers.
You're a monster.
That's not how it works.
Jasper is most importantly the bigger gem, physically speaking. Then the show pulls a 180 and has Lapis showing signs of abusers as well, admitting that she liked taking out her anger on Jasper.
I was terrible to you.
A few moments later.
I liked taking everything out on you.
You're all sick. Sick in the head.
Not before also having Jasper showing signs of abusers again and saying that she's changed. I hope you can all see the problem here. This is honestly just bad writing.
I am the one who knocks.
This is why the fandom was so divided on who the real abuser is. It's just a big disgusting mess. Steven Universe was an amazing show with phenomenal storytelling, but Lapis and Jasper's dynamic shouldn't have been turned into an allegory for abusive relationships. But that doesn't mean that Lapis is off the hook yet, not even close. Lapis Lazuli post season 2 was nothing short of physically painful to watch. The season 3 premiere, titled Super Watermelon Island, opens with the defeat of Malachite after Steven figures out her location by possessing one of his little watermelon Stevens. Naturally, the defeat of Malachite meant the return of everyone's favorite child suffocator, Lapis Lazuli.
I almost drowned a lot of people.
Now what gives you the right to play God in these people's lives?
Peridot and Jasper captured Lapis and kept her as an informant on their mission to Earth in the season 1 penultimate episode. It makes sense that because of this, along with everything else that Lapis had to go through over the course of 1,000 years, that she'd have a little trouble trusting people. But let me explain why everything that Lapis chooses to do after she's freed and escapes from a fusion with Jasper was wrong. But first, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this video so far. It helped me out a lot, thank you. When Lapis finally wakes up from a deep sleep, she makes the hasty decision to leave the band without thanking Steven and the Crystal Gems. This made sense. While the Crystal Gems weren't the one to imprison Lapis, Pearl kept her trapped in the mirror while fully knowing that a sentient gem was used to power it. Pearl didn't bubble the mirror, or tried to repair the obvious crack on its gemstone by using Rose's fountain, and it seems like Lapis caught on to at least some of this, so it made sense that she wouldn't want to be around them. Steven finds Lapis on the roof of a barn the very next day though, after she realizes that she can't really go back to Homeworld, especially since she'd have to answer for the disappearances of Jasper and Peridot.
You can totally stay here.
A few moments later.
You don't even have to stay in Beach City if you don't want to.
Now this is the moment where Steven says something really smart that breaks the rest of his entire arc. He reminds Lapis that Earth is a really big place, and even if she chooses to live on Earth, she doesn't necessarily have to stay in Beach City. Heck, considering the fact that gems don't need to eat or sleep, she isn't necessarily forced to live on Earth because there must be countless planets out there that haven't been conquered by Homeworld yet. Steven takes Lapis to see all kinds of places on Earth, and while she's unsure about a lot of them, there are a couple of places that she actually starts opening up to, like Empire City. Their journey eventually leads them to the Galaxy Warp, the place where Lapis was originally locked away inside of a mirror and later found by our very own Pearl. Lapis eventually brings Steven back to the barn and chooses to live on Earth. Everything was moving along smoothly until Lapis realizes that she missed out on Peridot's redemption arc. Steven tries everything that he could think of to get Lapis to forgive Peridot, but nothing works.
I really thought I would be living alone here.
Go on! Get the hell out of here!
The situation escalates to the point where Lapis deliberately breaks Peridot's tape recorder. Steven of course calls Lapis out on this, but she never apologizes to Peridot. This is especially disgusting because Lapis could have chosen to leave the band at any point during this episode and went off to live somewhere else. Lapis does stop this roaming eye, thus saving Peridot from being discovered by Homeworld, but considering her behavior so far, I'm more inclined to believe that she only stopped this thing because she herself was about to be discovered. After the roaming eye crashes, it's revealed to be a spaceship, surprising everyone. Look, Peridot isn't on trial here or anything, but how did she not know that the roaming eye was actually a Homeworld spaceship? That doesn't make any sense. Peridot is the newest gem in the Crystal Gems. She's fresh out of Everfree and has only been living on Earth for a few months. Yet she's surprised when the Roman eye is revealed to have a door. We learned that 5 rubies were sent to Earth to find and recover Jasper. Again, the rubies aren't on trial here or anything, but how in the world didn't the Roman eye identify 3 gemstones?
Where's the gem the scanner's locked onto?
What?
We literally see all 5 of the scanners picking up Lapis, Peridot, and Steven for a solid 20 seconds no less before Lapis actually does anything.
But not everyone has command over all the armies of Homeworld.
A few moments later.
This is an important mission from Yellow Diamond.
Again, Yellow Diamond isn't on trial here or anything, but if she really does have command over all of the armies of Homeworld, why did she send a single Roman eye spaceship filled with incompetent rubies to recover Jasper, since we're led to believe that Jasper was actually important to her? Why attempt to recover Jasper at all if Yellow truly believes that the Colossus emergence would have taken her out a full day ago? I'll tell you why. It's because the Universe wanted to have a baseball episode without thinking about the ramifications of any of this. But let's get back to the walking contradiction that is Lapis Lazuli by discussing her worst incident. Lapis, after living with Peridot and Pumpkin for a few months, decides to leave the Earth when she finds out that Steven is currently being hunted down by the diamonds, which is completely reasonable, except she tries to force Peridot and Pumpkin to come with her. Peridot naturally refuses, and when she does, Lapis rips the band out of the ground and takes it with her off planet.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Lapis returns in the episode Reunited and surprises everyone when she smashes the band into Blue Diamond.
What?
She didn't have to do this. The ocean is right there. How many times is Lapis going to be meters away from the ocean without doing anything useful with it? I'ma first get the shovel. Lapis is literally stronger with a cracked gemstone than she is with a freshly healed one. To make matters worse, Lapis doesn't even apologize to Peridot here either. She unironically breaks the ban, looks Steven dead in the eyes and asks him if he has room for one more gem.
You got room for one more?
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
I know that Rebecca Sugar and the Croniverse had to rush through the ending of the show, but how much would it have really cost to have a moment where Lapis sits down with Peridot and apologizes to her for all of the terrible things that she's done to her? Steven Universe has a serious villain problem. Every single antagonist on the show has a disappointing or rushed redemption arc that definitely teaches the wrong lessons to its targeted audience. Everyone's except for Peridot, of course. Peridot's redemption arc was phenomenal. I've shared my love for her journey throughout the series a few times already on the channel. The other antagonists and villains were all handled horribly though. They either never apologize for their past behaviors, or those who do apologize are too far gone for it to actually be believable. I mean, I hope we all realize that White Diamond breaking down and apologizing to Steven for quote-unquote hurting everyone in the entire universe is just like humans apologizing to vegans for being omnivores and eating meat. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the video so far. It'd help me out a lot. Thank you.
This is where the traffic is. This is also where the traffic is. There's traffic here too.
Jasper is my favorite OG Homeworld gem. I'm a big fan of Peridot, and I've already ripped Lapis Lazuli apart countless times, but I've always found Jasper to be the most interesting. She grabbed our attention from the start in her terrifying debut in the Season 1 penultimate episode. We always had an idea that she was important to the overarching story, but she was only utilized as a villain of the week for the majority of Season 3. Until the episode Earthlings, where it got revealed that Jasper originally belonged to Pink Diamond and was made on Earth before succumbing to the effects of corruption herself. The next time we get to see Jasper after this is at the end of the series, when she has quite possibly the quickest redemption arc of all time. Rebecca Sugar confirmed in her ad book that Cartoon Network only gave them a handful of episodes to wrap up the show, so I'm actually not blaming the Croniverse for the way that Jasper was handled at the end of the original series. I'm instead going to blame them for the way that Jasper was handled at the end of Steven Universe Future. How did that happen? How did they butcher Jasper's redemption arc twice? I mean, that's honestly impressive. At the beginning of Steven Universe Future, Jasper begged Steven for a rematch every chance that she got. She would eventually get her rematch after taking him up under her wing and teaching him how to control his new powers. Steven of course goes too far and actually ends up shattering Jasper. This was massive. I mean, at this point, we were told like a million times just how serious a shattering would be. It means the end of a gem's true self, something that the person responsible for the shattering would have to live with for the rest of their lives, something that can't easily be reversed or taken back. So Steven revives Jasper and she accepts him as her new diamond.
I bow. to your strength.
You're supposed to be dead!
Steven reviving Jasper isn't the problem in itself. It's the fact that the Croniverse clearly didn't have any plans for Jasper after her shattering. She doesn't appear during the final arc of the show, and she had to find out that Steven was leaving Beat City from some random source in Little Homewood.
Heard you're leaving.
I'm gonna break my monitor, I swear!
The Diamonds' individual redemption arcs should have been handled way differently. The Diamonds had no problem with any of what they were doing for thousands of years, even with Pink Diamond around. When we were first introduced to Yellow Diamond in the Season 2 episode Message Received, she was literally in the process of conquering another planet while sitting in its moon base. The only thing that learning the truth about Pink Diamond should have realistically done was giving them some closure. In reality, they were right about Pink Diamond. She was playing games with them and wrapped them up in her biggest game yet by disappearing and leaving her son to deal with it. Learning that Pink Diamond was Rose Quartz doesn't prove that the society was broken. The only thing it proves is that Pink Diamond really fell in love with her first colony. Before the other diamonds caved and gave Pink Diamond her first colony, she behaved like a spoiled child. Believe it or not, I can actually buy that the diamonds wanted to fix the effects of corruption on Earth, and wanted to take back the experiments on fallen crystal gems, because all of this was a byproduct of Pink Diamond's rebellion, and I truly believe that they loved her. Yellow Diamond is in charge of the armies of Homewood. What are the armies of Homewood doing now that the Diamonds have chosen to sing Kumbaya and all become pacifists? All of those Homewood Quartz soldiers would be in the exact same situation that Jasper found herself in at the beginning of Steven Universe Future. Do you guys remember how restless Jasper was before Steven shattered her? Heck, even after Steven shattered her and she was brought back, she was still left without a purpose. Isn't that funny?
That's not funny. That's super sad.
Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed the video and let me know if you agree with the points I've made down in the comment section. Take care.